And the real problem with school today is that it doesn't actually teach you applicable information. That's why people go to school and they feel so unsatisfied, because when they go to school, they learn all this stuff, but none of it is applicable. So, why exactly is education so important, but school doesn't actually provide it at all? In fact, the family is also supposed to provide part of it, as well as religion in some instances, but it doesn't. And why exactly is that the case? So, what exactly is education? Well, education, I believe, is similar to a vector. In fact, it's like technology, actually, almost exactly the same than technology itself. And the thing with technology is it's not necessarily about what the technology is, but it's about how you use it. So if you use the technology for good or violence, then it goes in that direction or that direction. It can go in the direction of good or in the direction of violence. The exact same thing applies to education, except it goes in a specific direction, and the only question is which direction do you choose for it to go into? Because there's a lot of directions that it can go into, and one of them today is actually a little bit of violence, obviously. And that's because for education today, the vector is pointed in the wrong direction, and kids and adults in college especially are taught what to think rather than how to think. Now, this is a huge problem, and just as the example of the death of Charlie Kirk is a great example of what to think rather than how to think. And it's not a good one either. This is really, really dangerous when we start educating stuff like this, which is sort of why he died, actually. It's pretty messed up, honestly. This is seriously messed up. Now, while knowing some basic facts and concepts is obviously very helpful in education, because some just really basic things like this vector thing that I talked about, learning in physics, right? It's sort of a concept, and it's something that you can use in your everyday life a little bit, not really too much, in terms of understanding the world. Now, all education today does, though, is it focuses on memorization and it ignores the other aspects of intelligence almost completely, by the way. And the problem is that memorization isn't even a form of intelligence, which is kind of funny. AI absolutely outdoes everything, by the way. And if you're interested, once again, that's in the intelligence video under the Think for Yourself playlist. And with the advancement as well of AI, memorization as intelligence becomes completely obsolete. And schools are basically outdated because of this very reason. And it's really important to understand this. Teaching kids to memorize things is not actually the way I think it should be done today. And the problem is that the intelligence that we are supposed to learn now is supposed to be a little bit more along the lines of not be a intelligent servant, which is what it previously was designed for, which, I talk about that as well. Now, why exactly is education essential in the first place? Now, the reason education is essential is because it acts as a pillar of societal stability and increasing the productivity and employability of a citizen. Basically, they allow for more productive work. Now, this means that they make more money. Basically, the productive citizen makes more money because of the skilled labor, and they provide more value. And in this case, this allows for more tax revenue. Now, the productivity of that citizen, or the value of that citizen, is the main reason behind the education, and it's the difference between a democracy and a dictatorship. And if you're really interested in that video, go check that video out. It's in the Think for Yourself playlist, if I remember correctly. Now, besides employability, education is crucial at affecting how the individual is taught to approach situations and how to think. Now, education is currently all about memorization, if we didn't already know. And this is basically what cramming looks like. Yeah, that's literally what education is today. And this is the whole purpose of tests. This doesn't necessarily measure intelligence, and that is a completely different video. If you're really interested in 12 components of what make up intelligence, which is like really vast, go check that out. Now, because of the whole reason of memorization and all this memorization, this is what will make education obsolete in the face of AI, which is exactly what's basically happening right now, actually. Slowly but surely, that will happen very, very quickly, and it will only accelerate because AI, or ChatGPT, didn't start getting super, super good, by the way, until it was about 2 years ago or so, where it was actually, I don't know if anybody remembers that, but it was actually a little more, it was better, but it wasn't necessarily that good. And now it's only getting even better and better and better. So yeah, and it, by the way, stores all of the information. It's literally like a library that you can access at any time at your hands. In fact, actually, it's better than a library. It's every single library combined all together including more, because it also includes some personal experiences as well as that matter. I mean, Jesus, it's really amazing. Anyways, now, why does school fail though in this aspect? Now, school fails because even though it tries to increase the productivity and employability of the citizen in this case, not in today's economy, obviously, because nobody can get a job, it's being outpaced by AI. And what school teaches, in this case, memorization and rote skills, memorization, it's literally another word for it, is not valued, with AI providing more value in that regard. And because of that, it makes today's education completely obsolete in today's economy. Now, because of school's history and the desired outcome, in this case, the desired outcome previously of school is intelligent servants, as mentioned by Rockefeller when he created the General Board of Education, which we'll get to a little bit. It lacks the ability to teach how to develop intelligence, which is not taught at school. And the tools to use AI effectively require asking the right questions, critical thinking, or adaptation. And none of these are taught by school. And honestly, school doesn't actually, once again, this is in the intelligence video. Critical thinking isn't actually a kind of intelligence. It's multiple different kinds of intelligence combined together. A really interesting video. You should go check that out, because that'll sort of give you an indicator of where your intelligence lies as well, because you'll be able to see, oh, okay, I'm much stronger in this than I am this. School, though, is missing tools, and sadly, there is no focus on asking the right questions in school. And for that matter, even using AI effectively, because people have to ask AI the right questions. That's the whole point of how AI is designed. If you aren't taught how to ask the right questions, then AI is almost obsolete, and it's really useless, because you will go down a rabbit hole of misinformation very, very quickly. Very, 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 very quickly. So that's not necessarily a good thing. Now, this leaves students unequipped for real world problem solving, and students today aren't taught how to ask the right questions in school, and in doing so, this also weakens their ability to use AI. However, this doesn't mean that they have no ability. They do still have some ability to ask questions, although they might not necessarily ask the right question, and in doing so, they lead to a wrong conclusion or a wrong outcome to try to solve the problem. They try to apply it, and it fails. Now, what exactly is the real reason behind school and its history? Now, to better understand anything at all, by the way, looking at its history will tell you quite a bit as to how and why it got there. And not only that, it will also tell you its purpose. Though in the case of school, it comes from Prussia, where Prussian education systems were created by King Frederick William I and mandated 8 years of compulsory basic schooling. And that basically means the indoctrination of kids. And in the case of indoctrinating the kids, they basically prevent the rebellions to continue on to future generations, and the rebelling will die off eventually, and the kids won't rebel. Now, the whole reason why this was made was because Prussia was defeated by Napoleon, as I've mentioned before, and the rebellions continually occurred, and William von Humboldt redefined it in the early 1800s, emphasizing Bildung, in this case, holistic growth, but strictly within a framework of state loyalty and social control. And by 1763, was basically fully state-run and designed to prevent uprisings and to ensure national unity. Now, there's a really important part about this whole thing, and it's that Bildung part. Holistic growth, but strictly within a framework of state loyalty and social control. School today is the exact same thing. And the real problem with school today is that it doesn't actually teach you applicable information. That's why people go to school and they feel so unsatisfied, because when they go to school, they learn all this stuff, but none of it is applicable, or at most 5% of it sometimes is applicable, and that's being generous.
How many of you have studied with your kids and you help them with a test and you realize this is so stupid? How many of you know what I'm talking about? You're sitting there with class, like I'm sitting there with my finals with my daughter. I'm like, you are never gonna use any of this shit. We'll do this, we'll appease the teacher, we'll get through the class, we'll get you the grades, we'll do the thing we're gonna do, but all we're gonna do is forget about it over the summer. It's nothing practical in anything we're doing. It's just really more is, can we put up with this nonsense task this human being is asking us to do so we can do this, versus learning something that's useful. I truly believe most of us are what I call educational bulimics, which means we learn enough for the test and eventually we throw it up and we forget it.
Most of what they learn is not applicable today, and they are not taught why it's not applicable, or even just useful information. That's the real problem. And that's the whole point of my channel, actually, by the way, is to teach you applicable information, real life applicable information that actually applies to the real world, and it isn't just basically bullshit, to keep it all simple, because school today is basically bullshit. It teaches you no applicable information in real life today, and I don't necessarily think that that's a good thing. Once again, if you are interested in learning about real life applicable information, go check out my playlists. They are all free, by the way, and members get to see all of my videos ahead of time before they come out, but all of my content will eventually be free. So once again, go check out my playlist and learn real life applicable information, and not keep on living in a world of bullshit, because that's basically what it is right now. Now, it doesn't stop there, though, because afterwards, a guy named Horace Mann visited Prussia, and he was pretty sure he was a legislator at that time, or something along the lines of a really high influential political leader in Massachusetts in 1843, and was impressed by its efficiency at creating disciplined workers. And this was during the time of the Industrial Revolution. And he implemented it in Massachusetts, and it included compulsory attendance, standardized curricula, by the way, all of this is what we have today, and factory-like structures, rows of desks that you see in school in today's day and age. And Rockefeller looked at this and he was like, whoa! And then he funded the GEB, in this case, the General Education Board. That's what it stands for. And the GEB report in the 1906, and it's basically the same thing today, stated, quote unquote, "We shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning, but we will make them good and intelligent servants." That's the most important part. Today's education is basically exactly this: good and intelligent servants. Now, I don't necessarily mind the intelligent part, although this is actually being outdated today because of AI, so that you're not even an intelligent servant, you're nothing, basically. You go to school, you learn nothing. You don't even apply what's applicable. Nothing actually is useful because you can't apply it. That's basically the big problem about all of this. And by the way, for those saying, well, you can't apply what school teaches you. Okay, sorry. You can apply it if you get a PhD and if you go even further into academia. And by the way, there's like a lot of p-hacking and academic fraud. If you don't know what that is, then I made a video on that. That's a year-old video, actually, now that I think about it. And anyways, back to the slideshow. Compliance for economic productivity over independent thought was the whole reason behind this model, and it did actually succeed. And the key part of this is education is not designed to teach you how to think, but it's designed to teach you how to be an effective employee. But the problem with that is the age of AI will change this very quickly. And the reason is because AI gives one person, a whole lot more information. And they basically have what before you would have to spend hours and hours, and for that matter, years to learn, because you would have to learn these books, memorize them, and then start doing all that stuff. Well, AI is doing that all for you at this point. Now the question becomes, how can you apply what you've learned? In this case, can you learn how to think rather than what to think? And can you apply that in a productive manner for society, for the benefit of society? Which AI is incredibly valuable. If you try to do all of your work without AI, you will be replaced, by the way. You will be outpaced so quickly. And somebody who does a better job than you will obviously take your spot. And they're going to be using AI, by the way. It's just the way it is. Now, this is what educating yourself looks like. It's the red line. And school education, and basically going through school and having to memorize stuff without actually applying it in real life, this is what the blue line looks like. So the thing is, when you learn something on your own and you start teaching yourself on your own, or maybe you don't even learn it on your own, but you're just very interested in something, you teach yourself part of the time, and then if you ever have questions, you might ask somebody who's a professional or who knows a little bit more about that field, then this is that red line. However, if you are in today's school system where you're taking tests and you're focusing on memorization, this is the blue line. Now, the problem is this is also actually the graph of AI, basically. This graph demonstrates exactly the same thing that AI does pretty much. AI is this tipping point of current knowledge crystallization. That was probably AI like 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And it is outpacing everybody else because it is memorizing far more. It is actually able to respond to your questions far better. So now the question becomes, how can you ask the right questions? Because that's exactly what the age of AI actually wants you to do. It's quite obvious here because we have a tool. This tool allows us to access an endless amount of information. The only question is, how do we sort that information correctly? That's what AI helps you do. However, you have to narrow it down even further with your questions and asking the right question. Now the question is, how do you actually educate yourself? Now, in order to actually learn about a subject and its intricacies in this case, I recommend watching my playlist and check out the video on intelligence and the different kinds of intelligence, because that will help a lot. Now, by the playlists, I mean the Think for Yourself playlist, because that will teach you a whole lot more and it will open you up to a much broader amount of information. And the most important way, by the way, to educate yourself is to apply what you learn to everyday life. Because if you learn something, you apply it, and it doesn't work, then there's clearly something wrong with the information that you've been taught, which is what everybody's taught today. So much misinformation, by the way. This is not just when it comes to nutrition, which I have a nutrition playlist if you're really interested in that, but it is also related to what you are taught when it comes to cleanliness or hygiene as well, because once again, if you're interested in optimal health, then I recommend you go check out that playlist, because I made a playlist on that as well. Not only the optimal health playlist, the Think for Yourself playlist, though, in my opinion, is probably one of the best ones, because that will teach you a lot. The relationships playlist will also help. It'll just help you with relationships, though, in that regard. Not just, by the way, romantic relationships, but relationships of any kind. And you'll get to see why men and women think the way they do, because it's pretty obvious. Now, to learn whatever you want, you must do it and practice it. School does not actually teach you any form of intelligence. Rather, it focuses on memorization of already known information, and AI replaces this, rather than application or adaptation to the immediate environmental change, which is a kind of intelligence, by the way, because some people are very successful today. That's one way if you want to really measure success. Just look at how much money some people have today, and you go, well, are they really intelligent? By school's definition, did they get good grades? Richard Branson is a clear example of no, he did not. Now, this is what I mean. There are many more kinds of intelligence. And as you can see with my little picture right here, instead of thinking and actually learning how to think, you are taught to memorize, and that's the whole problem with school. Now, memorization is not even a form of intelligence. Rather, it is a cognitive process and supporting skill, meaning that memorization only feeds into intelligence, but is not a kind of intelligence itself. And the problem is we have AI today, and AI feeds into intelligence, because once you have already known information, or in this case words, you have to be able to sort those words, which is exactly what AI does. And thanks again for watching. If you found the video helpful or informative, please like, share, subscribe, comment down below, because it really does help the channel grow. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. If you like the video, please give it a like. If you want to see more content like this, please let me know down in the comments below. What kind of content you want to learn about, please let me know down in the comments below, because I'm trying to educate people on actually applicable real world information that they can apply and use themselves, because they are taught so much bullshit today, sadly. And it's just why society is sort of the way it is, and why there's a lot of problems. Well, it's part of why there's a lot of problems. It's actually the erosion of certain societal pillars, which once again, you'll find that in the Think for Yourself playlist. It's pretty helpful. Anyways, thanks again for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one.